This is a Just Stop Oil protester being arrested. And this is me at a pro-Palestine protest in Brixton, where 2 kids under the age of 18 were arrested for what they'd written on their sign.
2 people that got arrested!
This weekend, I took to the streets of London to show you from the inside what is happening at these protests in our capital. So if you want to know what was written on those placards, how the mainstream media are covering both pro-Palestine and rising Just Stop Oil protests, then stick around as we head into the chaotic streets of London talking to those involved.
So we're here at New Scotland Yard because before we go to the pro-Palestine protest, we thought we'd check out Just Stop Oil. It's COP28 happening and they have a protest here. A little bit underwhelming, I'm not going to lie, because there's about 50 people. But we have been told by the police that some of them may well be in breach of their bail conditions, so they could get arrested. However, it's a very British protest, so basically what they've said is these people may slowly walk into the road, at which point the police will slowly follow them and slowly arrest them. So not much action happening at the moment. Clearly not enough people believe that not ever using oil again is the right solution to the world's problems.
With the 3 no's. We're not aiming for the Gianni arrest. Okay, and I believe we have some lovely speeches from some lovely young people, so if they want to start coming up so I can get off the stage. Where are they gone?
Oblique intent is where you don't specifically want to kill people by extremes of drought, heat and flood, but you know with certainty that your policies are contributing to mass death and suffering. We have a corrupt criminal justice system, and that is determined to play its part in crushing the young. I don't know who I'm passing to. Sorry guys. I don't know what to do with
No, it's not going to
Someone take it off me.
We'll be off in about 2 minutes.
Great content.
Thank you.
Remember that.
So we're about to set off, I think. I think there's going to be a slow march through the road, at which point I think some of them might get arrested. We'll find out.
If anyone gets a muffin, they're not vegan, I'm afraid, because I swiped them from Holiday Inn. I'm not joking. Muffins, apple. It's important to say, help yourself. No worries.
Who is Ella and what was she arrested for?
She was arrested for walking in the road.
Stopping traffic.
No, she was arrested for campaigning against this government's illegal policies.
Which ones?
The complete ignorance of the huge risk to the existential risk to the human race.
How much would it cost to get us carbon neutral?
I don't have that in my head at the moment.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you what though.
Okay.
It will be a lot cheaper than the collapse of the environment, which is imminent. Just look around you. The world's on fire. And we've known about this.
Is it?
Well, not in this country, but just go and look at what's happening in the tropics. Just look at the amount of wildfires that have broken out all over the country, all over the world this year. Just look at the rate at which the economy, the global economy is collapsing. Just look at the rate of change.
What is the rate at which the global economy is collapsing? Sorry, I must have missed this.
Well, I'm sure you can find that out. You're a reporter after all. I'm sure you have your sources.
Go into detail!
You know you're on the wrong side of history.
And the murder of the Palestinian people at the hands of Zionists, which most Jews also oppose. Jewish people have had their name tarnished by colonists.
The police have arrested someone and he hasn't even broken any laws. He hasn't even stepped onto the road yet.
So why have they arrested him, do you think?
Because, well, I mean, you should ask them.
Yeah, well, I did, but the police never talk to anyone with a camera.
No, they don't, you're right.
I mean, you can understand why, I suppose, because they've got superiors telling them not to. Is it because this person's breached their bail conditions, maybe? Because that's what we were told by the police.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know what his bail conditions are.
Right.
But it would be astonishing to me if his bail conditions were don't stand on the side of the pavement.
Elliot. So someone is being dragged off into a police van, and everyone else is applauding it, which is odd. Whatever you think about it, it's quite heavy policing if you compare it to some of the things that were happening in some other protests in recent weeks. They're really keen to crack down on it.
We're full of peace and love. We just want to protect people.
If you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit subscribe now and also comment below to let me know what other protests across Europe you'd like us to check out. Also, make sure you stick around to the end to hear my take on the day.
Did you manage to contact Alex? How did that happen?
Guys, do you know why your friend was arrested?
He was on the pavement and the police came up and arrested him, and I think that's disgusting. It is a breach of our human rights to protest. I mean, just look how many police vans there are here right now. I mean, it's absolutely diabolical. They should be prosecuting the real criminals, people like Rishi Sunak, who are allowing this to happen, who are allowing the climate crisis to worsen.
I mean, I have to say, there is a hell of a lot of police here for what is objectively a non-violent, not particularly scary protest.
But the people are stronger than they are. Oppression. We've lost one person. We've lost two people. We've lost 3 people.
We find ourselves in a position where we want to have a march. We want to march along the road with a big group of people, and it's been pre-liaised with the police. And at this point in history, you cannot do that. It's illegal to do that. We've had a Section 7 imposed on us. The police have said we can continue on the pavement, but we cannot march on the road. Shame on the police. Shame on the government. Shame on the government.
Talking to these Just Stop Oil protesters really shows you that these are, by and large, very well-meaning people. But as you've seen, not very organized. They don't really seem to know exactly what they want. I don't think they've considered the trade-offs of the policies that they're advocating. So it does seem that these are really just stop the world, I want to get off type of protests.
I'll be your facilitator. Woo. Why are we here?
Woo! Why are we here?
Why are we here?
Climate justice.
Climate justice! Okay. What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
No!
50 people with arrest on the pavement. That's the only place we're allowed to protest, is on the pavement. We know that this is not what protest looks like. We didn't even get to step in the road before they forced us off. They picked off 2 of us, they put 3 of us in vans, and we never even stepped onto the road. This is what oppression looks like. This is what it looks like when people don't have the right to protest.
So we are walking slowly towards Westminster in front of the Just Stop Oil protesters. Watch out, Elliot. We're walking on the pavement because a couple of people, I think, tried to go into the road. They immediately got arrested. This is what's happening. Someone's not getting the message.
Defending the future of ourselves and millions of people around the planet is punishable by sentences of months in prison, like actual prison. Free Marcus!
Free Marcus!
Free Kiara!
Free Kiara!
Free Ella!
Free Ella!
We stand in solidarity with you!
When London's underwater, when London's underwater, you'll listen then, you'll just stop oil. When London's underwater, when London's underwater, you'll listen then, you'll just stop all. Oi! I'll get arrested for crap drumming.
There's a bit of drumming, which is exciting. You know, this is my complaint last week. Without drumming and chanting, it's just not as good.
Free Kiara! Just stop oil! Just stop oil!
Mind if we ask you a couple of questions? Okay, no worries. I want to talk to somebody, but not everyone wants to talk to me. Why are you here?
Yes, I'm here because I'm quite concerned about the climate crisis.
In July 2022, we had got 40 degrees heat in this country. Also around the world, 2023 is very certain to be the hottest year ever, and it is only going to become worse if we continue to burn oil and gas. We've still got.
So you'd like us to stop oil and gas completely?
Yes, all new licenses. Obviously, we still have got some reserves there, which we can use over the next couple of years, but we do need to make efforts to ramp up renewable energy and use less energy by having better public transport, making our homes more energy efficient.
And how much will it cost?
Well, it will save us money in the long run. How much does it cost to save all the people from extreme weather caused by the climate crisis?
The fascist decisions that this system and the government and their complicity in the complete destruction of our future, we will not let that go unnoticed, and we will not be silent about it.
You were talking about what the government is doing. You said they were fascist. What do you mean exactly?
I mean, it's the repression you can see exactly here. For example, we can't march on the road. We march on the pavement only. It's before we even managed to step foot on the road, there were 3 arrests. I mean, we're here to march against injustice, and before we could even start the march, people are being arrested. It kind of sums it up right there, right?
Do you think that they're arresting people because they don't want you to block the traffic? Wouldn't that be why they're doing it?
That would be, I think the real question is, why don't the government want to secure a livable future? Why don't they want to listen to the science? The 6,600 peer-reviewed IPCC scientists, that's a UN-sanctioned report that states that new oil and gas is incompatible with a livable future. I think the real question is, why doesn't the people in that building, and why don't the people in that building jail the real criminals instead of imprisoning 18-year-olds for trying to protest because they're terrified about their future?
And when you say the real criminals, who are you referring to?
Rishi Sunak and Shell CEO. Rishi Sunak.
You'd like the police to arrest the Prime Minister?
We have given a dossier of evidence to Mark Rowland, the head of the Met Police, stating exactly how Rishi Sunak's actions amount to crimes against humanity. I'm sure you would agree that Hitler should have been arrested during his peak.
I would, yeah.
Exactly. So it's
Do
not.
you think Rishi Sunak is Hitler?
I think Rishi Sunak is amounting to crimes against humanity.
Okay. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
The protest is moving on, as you can see. Some thoughts about the media and all of this, and perhaps we'll talk about this more later. But this was a tiny protest. There was almost nobody there.
Why they eat fried chicken?
Oh, it was covered by probably as many journalists. Secondly, as you can see right now, there was a shit ton of police. For about 50 protesters, there was probably more police than protesters here again. They're obviously making sure these people don't get into the roads. But even so, I think one of the things it demonstrates is the police can crack down on protests and prevent things from getting out of hand and prevent the laws from being broken if there's enough of them and if there's the political will to do it. And that probably means that the resources weren't being used somewhere else, like stopping crime, policing other protests, etc. So follow us as we head over to a pro-Palestine protest and see what's happening there. We'll find out if there's enough police and what they're getting up to. We have arrived in Brixton at Windrush Square. There's a protest happening and the police have just arrived. I don't know what they're going to do. We're about to find out. There's a lot of protesters here. Someone here says, "Hoot for Gaza." Why are you here, sir? Why are you here, sir?
We've been doing this for a few weeks now.
Yes.
If you go out into the middle of the traffic, people start hooting straight away.
Okay.
Instant response. Especially Sunday afternoon at Herne Hill.
Yeah.
You can get them hooting for a minute non-stop.
Is that because they're trying to get home?
No, that's because we say hoot for Gaza. They're hooting for Gaza.
I see. So it looks like the police are basically keeping him off the road. That's all that's happening here. What brings you here to the protest?
I've just come here to show solidarity with the Palestinian people because they're having such a terrible time in Gaza and they're being slaughtered and their children are being slaughtered and their homes are being destroyed and things could be different. that part of the world could be living in peace and democracy, and instead we're having this bloody great war. And I came here to show solidarity, and now I find that the police around here are starting trouble by arresting young people with placards.
What are they arresting them for?
They've arrested one young person, they've arrested in there, and he's been there since I got here, which is about nearly an hour, and they won't let him go. And he's got something written on his placard which says, okay, it says Zionism is like Nazism, something like that. That's a second-hand comment. I didn't see it. Somebody told me that's what he'd written.
And you mentioned you think that...
You don't arrest people for that. You don't arrest people for that. You might argue with them. You might say, are you sure that's true? He's a young person. He's maybe made a mistake. But honestly, this is not good policing. I've seen good policing on all the other demonstrations I've been on to support Palestine. I've seen good policing. This is terrible. They've stirred up a riot. Maybe that's what they wanted.
You said that part of the world would be living in peace and democracy. Could be. What would need to happen for that to happen?
If we didn't have a state, a racist state in Israel, if Israel was run as a totally equal democracy, and all Palestinians and all the people in that part of the world could live under an equal rights government, then we wouldn't have this situation.
The police have now blocked off the road as well. One person has been apparently arrested, and we'll find out more about what's going on here.
The longer it goes on, the more important I think it is for people to show support, because numbers drop off. The way that it's being handled by people in power does need challenging. And clearly there's
like, who do you mean when you say people in power?
I mean the governments, and I mean...
Of which country? This country?
This country. Like, it's too hard to sum up briefly. Like,
And what would you like to see happen now?
Change. Like, first of all, the ceasefire. That's primarily save lives, and then a two-state solution, I guess, probably.
Two-state solution,
probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I came here today because I'm concerned about the terrorism of the Israeli state in invading Gaza, and 198 people have been killed since the ceasefire has ended. Innocent, unarmed Palestinians, and more or less to call for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire.
What do you say to people who say there was a ceasefire before October 7th and this is why there's the fighting now?
Yeah, well, sometimes ceasefires break down. I was involved myself when the first Irish ceasefire broke down in January 1975. I was involved myself in talks between the IRA and the British government in order to get the ceasefire resumed.
Oh, wow.
I'm chairman of the Irish Civil Rights Association. I had stood for Parliament here in October 1974. I led 7 candidates for the Irish Civil Rights Association. And because I had taken part in the democratic process, I was able to make a phone call to the IRA and to the British government, and I just simply asked them, would a representative of each of them meet with a view to getting the ceasefire resumed?
I want a ceasefire, and I want the lifting of the siege now. There are many, many thousands of people living in very, very small area. They have got no army, they have got no navy, they have got no air force. Now they have hardly any health care at all because it's been bombed to smithereens. And they are like fish in a fish bowl being shot at.
And how do you think we get peace now?
We get peace by the United Nations, which is the only organization that is worldwide, pulling together all the Arab nations around there who are, excuse my language, halfway up the US arse, to come out of that, to have the sort of sympathy that I have got for the human life that is being destroyed in front of our eyes.
Before the attack on October 7th on Israel,
Yes.
in which 1,200
Yeah.
civilians were killed, people would argue that was a ceasefire that was broken by Hamas. What would you say to those people?
Well, I would say to those people that Gaza was still under siege. It was still, the people of Gaza were completely controlled by the Israeli government, as we've seen, because as soon as it happened, the water was cut off, food was cut off, everything was cut off. They were only allowed, at that time, so many calories a day, controlled by the Israelis.
While we were talking to this lovely lady, it sort of calmed down a bit. The road has been opened up. The crowd's mostly chilled out as well. It just seems to have become mostly peaceful. Mate, can I ask you a couple of questions to find out what's going on here?
Sure. Quickly, who are you from first?
We're an independent YouTube channel. We go to protests and film documentaries about it.
Independent, that's okay.
Yeah, okay. I take you're suspicious of mainstream TV or?
Oh, yeah. I call it right-wing TV, man.
Right-wing TV?
Nah, they'll cut and edit any and everything you say and just like try to paint a bad picture of you.
Okay.
And if you keep everything clean, then they just won't air it anyway, so.
Which channels are you talking about?
Let's say on Freeview, all of them except for Al Jazeera. And above Al Jazeera, GB News and Talk TV, they're even more right-wing than, say, like the BBC and the Zionist Sky News, for example.
You think Sky News is right-wing and Zionist and BBC
Oh,
as well?
definitely. A 14-year-old had a sign that they didn't quite like. The sign said, ceasefire now, children are not collateral damage, and then a very small writing had said, stop Zio-Nazism. But because the word Zio-Nazi was in there, they didn't like the sign, so they grabbed the 14-year-old. We had a bit of a standoff, and this gentleman and I helped calm things down on our respective sides.
And what would you like to see happen now with the conflict?
Then just stop the airstrikes on civilians, stop targeting civilian homes, water storage, solar panels, UN schools where civilians are taking shelter. Stop with the airstrikes on civilians. If they really want a war, fight it out in the streets of Gaza City, where they're being hunted by Al-Qassam brigades, who are destroying hundreds of their tanks and killing thousands of their troops. Fight a real war on the ground, which they can't win.
If you were in charge of Israel on October 8th, what would you do?
Well, you have to do a little investigation. You know what I mean? You can't just automatically look to bomb Gaza into oblivion. You got a hostage crisis. Guess what? You might kill some of your hostages, which is exactly what they've done. They've killed scores of them.
So you see October 7th as them breaking out against the occupation?
Resistance. Been a long time coming. Retaliation to many previous massacres in the Gaza Strip. They hit every single military base around Gaza within 6 minutes.
This is not self-defense. You know, this is not war. This is. I think they want to kill them all. It's a genocide. It's an extermination of the whole people of Gaza.
And why do you say they want to kill them all?
I think the evidence is there. I think they've already flattened about 60% of the buildings. I think the numbers are about 15,000 now. I'm certain that's a conservative estimate, but the majority of the hospitals have been destroyed. They're not functioning. They're attacking schools. I don't see how Gazans can survive unless there's an immediate ceasefire. If I'm a victim of any kind of assault, that doesn't exempt me from the moral order. Now, the Israelis, as I understand it, they regard the IDF as the most moral army in the world. I mean, that's a sick joke now, because they seem to think that the fact that they were victims of this assault, it exempts them from the moral order. Well, that's not the case. So whatever response you make, you have to do so within. I'm a Catholic. There's a just war theory, which is about using legitimate force and not harming civilians and so on. That applies to everybody.
You feel that they're not respecting that?
Certainly not.
I'm a trauma national expert in the UK, and I think one thing that is important is that actually trauma, the mechanism of trauma in the brain, silence people, silence the voice of people. Genocide is what is happening. And in some ways, I think the Western countries are silencing us, not just the trauma that we are observing and absorbing, but also the governments are doing that. As a doctor, as a physician, it's very hard actually to be in the position of feeling you need to help people when they come to your unit and they traumatize, but at the same time, what are we doing with this kind of colluding in our governments to a major crime that is traumatizing further human beings?
Talking to a lot of people about October 7th as well, I'm guessing the way Israel is responding seems to be a response to the trauma that they suffered as well.
You know, I'm a bit cynical about that. Every human being is been traumatized one way or another. And I don't think you can excuse your behavior on trauma that you've been suffering, inflicting it to others.
We are wrapping up here. We came to Brixton to catch a pro-Palestine protest. It was very interesting. At the beginning, this road here was completely blocked off by the police who were trying to push the protesters back onto the pavement. Eventually, they succeeded. Again, as with other protests we've covered, difficult to get a kind of answer about how people think we should move forward. But yeah, an interesting day all around. We are driving home after a long day of documenting the various protests. Very similar numbers of people at both protests, but they were policed very differently. The Just Stop Oil one had overwhelming numbers of officers. It could be because it was in Westminster, I don't know. It could be because they're really cracking down on those particular protesters. And it was interesting, you know, because in this particular situation, we didn't see any of the hateful or sort of violent rhetoric that we've seen on other protests, at least on social media and stuff. And talking to people, you know, I didn't get the sense that there were many people there because they really were anti-Semitic or hated Jews or even necessarily hated Israel. I think there may have been one or two, but generally speaking, I just think it was people who were empathetic to the plight of people in Gaza. And the thing that I really took away from it, for me, was that it was quite a lot of people who, they don't see the whole picture, but they are empathetic and caring people. So when they see people being killed and people being injured by bombs, they feel compassion there. But that was my takeaway. The thing that I really saw was people who, you know, the moment you start to ask them, well, what would you have done if you were in charge of Israel after October 7th, etc., they don't really have an answer. It's a very complicated situation, obviously. We are doing meta media because we're actually covering the way the media covers that issue, which I thought was fascinating because there were so many photographers there, there was so much other media there at the Just Stop, and there was a shit ton of police there in a way that there just wasn't at this pro-Palestine protest, even though there was more people protesting at the pro-Palestine protest than there had been at the Just Stop Oil. I didn't encounter any real media other than, like, you know, independent YouTubers and stuff at the March Against Anti-Semitism. I know a lot of you commented that you're really enjoying the stuff that we've been filming on the streets of protests, etc. We're going to be doing a lot more of that, so make sure you smash that subscribe button, smash the like button, click the bell as well so you get notified when new content comes out, and let us know in the comments what you think. Are you enjoying these videos? Are you enjoying some of the other stuff that we're doing? Let us know. That way we're going to be informed and it shapes what we do with the channel going forward.